A week after vacation, something terrible happens. Ryu goes with Miyamura to Maria Sarushima's house. She's the next witch. Nene's group was investigating her on their own. They help her remodel her room and she falls asleep in the living room. The protagonist tries to kiss her to discover her power. When he's close to her, she whispers for him to help her. The protagonist asks Miyamura to leave them alone. Sarushima has the power to see the future. The protagonist doesn't believe her. Everything is fine until one day, she sees the old school building on fire. She was responsible for the fire in that future, which is why she decided to lock herself in her house. In the vision, the protagonist was with her and was blamed for starting the fire. She didn't want to meet the protagonist, but the future doesn't change that easily. She knew he would look for her. Ryu kissed her. He wanted to understand her powers. Nene knew she was a witch. The protagonist tells his friends about his powers and about the fire. They need to find the real culprit. The protagonist can see himself in Maria's future predictions exactly as Maria does. Urara explains what she has understood so far. She sees the future from the perspective of the person she kisses. Ryu realizes that there was someone else in the fire and Maria confirms it. She kissed her friend right before that happened. The protagonist decides to look for him to get information. Kentaro Tsubaki was the person he was looking for. He finds him and they go to a cafe to talk. Kentaro confesses that he was in love with Urara, the only girl who ignored him. He asks the protagonist to set up a date with her and Ryu agrees. Kentaro goes with the protagonist to the old school building to show him one of his hobbies. They enter the cooking room and Kentaro prepares food for the protagonist to seal their friendship. Ryu has no doubts. He believes that Kentaro is responsible for the fire. Ryu tells his friends about it. The fire would happen at night. He can see the future again and it shows him meeting with Maria and Kentaro. He'll try to change the future. Urara doesn't show up for the date. The protagonist asks Kentaro to kiss him but he refuses. Miyamura tries to help but they end up forcibly taking Kentaro. However, Kentaro is very strong and beats them up. Their plan doesn't work. Maria knew that she would fail. She goes to the club room and Ito kisses her and tells her everything. She meets Ryu's friends. The protagonist switches bodies with Urara and meets with Kentaro. The future vision indicates the time of the fire. The protagonist has to keep Kentaro occupied during that time. He goes shopping with Kentaro and Maria calls him. The future isn't changing, it's getting worse. Miyamura has a plan to postpone Kentaro's love confession. Ryu tries to implement the plan but Kentaro insists and shouts his confession. Urara intervenes, comes closer and kisses the protagonist right in front of Kentaro, making him believe that they're together. Urara complicates things and Kentaro runs to the old school building depressed. The protagonist follows him and kisses him after Urara distracts him, changing the future. The boys celebrate. Kentaro wants to join the club. Maria talks to the protagonist privately, thanking him for everything. She confesses that Urara switched bodies with the protagonist to avoid being blamed for the fire. If you like my videos, you can support me by becoming a channel member, or you can donate me on Buy Me a Coffee. Your support will encourage me to make more videos. You can find links in the video description.
Yeah.
The protagonist is shocked. Ryu talks to Urara, expresses his concern and she smiles before leaving. Nene talks to the boys and realizes Maria's power a bit late. The cultural festival is approaching and a mysterious girl is excited about the news. The boys need to stop 3 troublesome freshman students to secure a place in the festival. Keigo Shibutani, Seiko Fukasawa, and Ren Asano are the targets. The most important one is Noa Takagawa, the next witch. The president Haruma Yamasaki knows everything about the witches. They got their powers within the school. Noa probably has the second volume as they were cleaning the room during vacation as ordered by the council. The protagonist needs to stop Noa to secure their place in the festival and get the second volume. Ryu talks to Noa and the protagonist tells her that he knows the whole truth. Noa pretends she has nothing to do with the troubles caused by her friends. She flirts with the protagonist and Ryu plays along, but she's just joking. She leaves. The protagonist tries to kiss her several times but she refuses. She suggests that he joins her team. She heard a rumor about something they were planning and wanted to be a part of it. However, Noa doesn't trust him. Ryu tells her he knows about the witches and her attitude changes. She enters a room with him, tries to kiss him, and in return she would tell him about the other witches. The protagonist stops her, changes his mind and rejects her. Noah leaves angrily without saying a word. The protagonist fails. Noah keeps her friends silent due to her power. She uses them, ordering them to destroy the protagonist club and stealing the first volume of the book. Ryu gets angry and threatens the president. He wants to know why she's collecting the books. If she refuses to cooperate, he won't help her anymore. Haruma tells him that Noah wants to eliminate all the witches in the school. The girls who receive powers are those who are experiencing some kind of problem or concern. Noah looks for students with complexes, selects her victims based on their past, and wants her friends to inherit the powers to turn them into witches. She already had 2 volumes of the book handling more information than they did. Girls could be in danger. She warns her friends and they plan to set a trap for Noah and her henchmen. Miyamura had a plan. The protagonist switches bodies with Urara staying alone. Seiko forcibly kisses him, calls her friends, but the protagonist easily defeats them. They didn't know that Ryu had taken Urara's body. They capture the troublesome students. She wanted to get Urara expelled. The boys learn that Noah wasn't forcing her friends, they were doing everything willingly. They decide to take them as hostages to stop Noah. They switch bodies with Noah's friends. The protagonist tells them to forget the plan to expel the witches in exchange for their release. She refuses but then decides to negotiate. She offers the first volume in exchange for her 3 friends. The protagonist refuses and Noah doesn't accept it either. Miyamura proposes to captivate them using Nene's power so they would be on their side. Seiko gets scared, agrees to forget the plan and tries to convince Noah. She doesn't want them to lose their friends. Ryu emerges victorious, angering Noah. He kisses her for her to understand his truth. Noah's power allowed her to dream of other people's traumatic events. Noah had suffered terrible traumas, but her classmates were unfairly blamed. They didn't cause the problems, she wanted to help them. The protagonist understands Noah's feelings and reconciles with her. He suggests that they continue their lives away from her so they won't be seen as troublemakers anymore. Keigo appears and surprises the protagonist with a punch. He was angry, nobody believed them, but it was actually his fault for lacking character and causing Noah's suffering. She is touched by the protagonist's help. The boys receive their reward. Noah falls in love with the protagonist. Urara believes that he has a hidden power that he hasn't discovered yet. He changes people's hearts. The club opens during the festival with its yakisoba bread and clairvoyant stand. They use Maria's power to see the future and they sell all the bread because of it. Ryu talks to Maria and she wants to eliminate her powers. She dreams of falling in love but can't find a partner if she sees the future. The protagonist visits Shinichi Tamaki. He wanted his help to remove Noah's powers. Noah talked to him about the protagonist. Tamaki could steal witches' powers. Currently he had the power of the last witch he kissed. He demonstrates it to the protagonist, hiding completely from people he kisses. He couldn't help with the protagonist's friend. If he kissed another witch, her power would override and disappear. Ryu insists and Tamaki kisses him, but his spell doesn't work on the protagonist. Tamaki tells the protagonist he's a witch hunter. He proposes a deal with the protagonist. He wants to be the next president. Ryu needs to see the future and find out who his successor will be, then tell Tamaki. This way he would help Maria. Ryu visits the president. Asuka Makoto is with them, his assistant. He asks about his successor but can't tell him. Nene kisses the protagonist before going to Hamura so she would have him on her side. She also wants to know and tries to forcibly kiss him, but Asuka knocks him out with a kick. The protagonist wakes up and Asuka makes him speak. He tells them why he needed the information. Asuka releases him and decides to help him. She also sought the president for the same reason. She erased his power and it now belonged to Tamaki. Asuka is a witch. The president couldn't help the protagonist. He hadn't decided who would take his place yet. He tells him to search for the 7th witch. Whoever finds her will be the next president. Nene starts searching on her own. Tamaki still couldn't remove Maria's power. They needed to find the 7th witch first, and then Tamaki would fulfill his part of the deal. Ryu tells Maria to wait, thanks her and kisses her. He sees the future. Tamaki removes her powers. He becomes the president and Urara becomes his secretary. The protagonist starts searching for the 7th witch along with Miyamura. He wants to prevent Urara from leaving. He has fallen in love with her. Miyamura finds a list of students who caused problems in the school. The witch could be on that list, so they start their search. On the other hand, Miyamura asks Kentaro and Ito for help in getting the presidency for the sake of everyone. An invisible someone enters the room and overhears their conversation. Urara wants to know why he's searching for the witch. She tells him to let her know when he's ready. Tamaki is waiting for the right moment to act. Nene thinks he's given up, tells the boys, and the protagonist senses that something's off. He kisses them all. Miyamura, Ito, and Kentaro are all under the effect of his power. They realize he had been eavesdropping. Ryu suggests using the body swapping to deceive him. Urara would switch with him. He was nervous and couldn't do it himself. Urara had to take the initiative and kiss him. The protagonist couldn't keep hiding the truth. He tells Urara about the future vision. In that version of the future, Urara had the same expression as before the body swap. Ryu didn't want her to feel that way again. She understands the protagonist's actions, but she doesn't intend to go back to being the same as before. For that, the protagonist had to change the future. And that's the end of the video. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I will bring more excitement anime in the future. Thanks for watching, bye.